Hey guys! Oh my goodness. Hey, you are tuning into the Deepen Roots podcast. My name is Kara Olker and I am a health and life coach, more specifically, a personal power coach. I help you deepen your personal power by uprooting the inherited mindsets designed to keep you hidden. In my practice, we focus on inherited language around thoughts, internal shame around feelings, and external shame around actions that perpetuate the cycle around thoughts and feelings, which is the result of personal relationships, society, and patriarchy. Deep and Roots podcast has been created to give listeners an opportunity to connect how our inherited mindsets can lift up or mess up our personal power, feeling your feelings, dealing with your feelings, healing and your feelings, trusting your gut while you pull away from the noise and get grounded in yourself. Now, that is the beginning of taking back your personal power however you need to in a way that serves you. Now, let's get started. And let's roll the intro video because I always forget to do that. Welcome to episode 52. Yes, love it. So let's get into the chats real quick. The chat. So we have Temsone representing. Hey, bestie, he says. Hello, bestie. And dancing over here in the basement in the woods, Temsone also says. And he's drinking wine already. So there you go, with Gary the Goat. Inside joke. And so if you're watching, if you're on live stream, you'll notice that I'm wearing a robe, which I joked to Tim So and I said, you know what, this is so comfy. I'm just gonna wear my robe to the live stream. I mean, why not, right? It's so comfy. It looks good. It makes me feel so good and comfy. So that's what we're getting today. And today we're going to be talking about self care versus self preservation, anyways. So we're going to get into that. And also music credits. Jacoby McDuffie. Uh, he is such a dear friend, and I am blessed to be his co host on the Gamers Den, one of the many co hosts. It's Wednesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So shout out to Jacoby. And as you know, that this week or this month has been Black History Month, and I've been talking about it on the show and on social media throughout the month. This month has been this year's theme for this month has been Black Health and Wellness. And so I just want to talk about, I guess, why I'm big on just, also just talking about Black History Month. I'm very much aware that what I say is not my voice, it is just amplifying the perspectives that are out there and the history around Black history. And um, just letting that be amplified. And it's also important because there have been some things that I learned this year. I'm always learning, but of course with Black History Month, all month happening, you learn all sorts of things still, and all sorts of aspects of history. And one thing that I learned that I didn't know, but it makes sense in history. You know how sometimes things just happen in history and then you realize there's another layer to it and you're like, oh, that makes sense. Completely makes sense. And this is one of them. So it's called the Nadir of race relations, and it happened in the end of the Reconstruction era, which was about 1890 to 1944. And so the Reconstruction era happened between 1870s, you know, late 1860s, early 1870s to 1890. And, you know, this is a different layer to the Jim Crow laws, which legalized separation. Now, the Nadir isn't talked in about and taught in textbooks because it was pretty much the eradication of Black history in the making and celebration of overt racism with white Americans, not just against Black Americans, but also Indigenous Americans as well. There are three parts to the Nadir. The first part was that there was intense mining where Indigenous Americans, Indigenous people, especially in the Dakotas, they were forced out, especially due to gold being in the Dakotas. Then there was the second part, the treatment of immigrant workers, where you have formerly enslaved people who are now figuring out the process of citizenship, which is a whole other layer of insanity and a whole other layer of history. They're getting jobs that were promised and then being driven out. So there's a whole other aspect, and with that is just and the third part was the attack on Filipinos, and especially around and Hawaii in 1899. So there's three aspects, and something that's not talked about in history because it is a part of our history, such as due to the Nadir. When we think of the first professional Black baseball player, we think of Jackie Robinson. But in the 1890s, it was Moses Fleetwood Walker. And also during that time, the 1890s, early 1900s, there were a lot of, Kentucky Derby. So I live close to, Kentucky, and everyone's all about Kentucky Derby. And there was a point where Black jockeys were banned because 15 out of 28 Kentucky Derbies were won by Black jockeys. So it was like, hey, we don't like that, and so the white jockeys and the people who own the Kentucky Derby or part of the Kentucky Derby, I mean, that a total ban on people who are just people and who just are jockeys, right? And so even before the Reconstruction era, there is I heard about this before, but I always like reading it. Mustafa, there was a man named Mustafa. He was an enslaved man who charted much of the West, and he learned many of the languages with indigenous people of the West, and also what is now called Latin America. And he was given the, I guess, nickname or moniker of Esteban, but let's call him Mustafa because that's his name. And so without him, we wouldn't have had the depth or understanding of the West that's now, again, the West, like Arizona and New Mexico and Mexico. So with the rise and fall of the Black Lives Matter movement in 2020 and 2021, and the screeching woundedness behind people literally just claiming that, hey, Black Lives Matter too, with the absolutely tragic deaths that unfortunately is a commonplace. George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and so many countless others, due to racism. Okay, so there's screechingness behind people being upset because, hey, let's talk about the fact that people are dying for no reason. And the screeching woundedness and misinformation regarding critical race theory. There has been especially another Nadir brewing in the last few years. And I do want to talk about, because, why do I talk about this on Deepened Roots? I've watched social medias, many of my LinkedIn connections who are Black, they talk about how being Black isn't just for 1 month and how this month can bring up some personal trauma. Other connections who are Black have been silent and pushing on because there's nothing they need to explain to anyone, rightly so. And regardless, being white does not mean you get to other anyone who isn't white either. It means you get to learn as much as you can about experiences that aren't your own, read up on history that unfortunately is hidden but not lost due to Google, thank goodness Google, and amplify voices that are not your own, not speak for. So I'm very much aware that I get kudos from people who are white, while I see some comments responding to some of my LinkedIn connections who are Black that are reactive. This is why I talk about Black History Month every month. And so some reads, and I'm going to do this with every episode too. Next month is Women's History Month. So that'll be interesting. And I'm planning on making that intersectional as well. But this week's reads centering around Black History Month is The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas and Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates. So yeah, anyways, I wanted to get that out there, and let's look at the chats. So we have Lagia. Hey, Lagia, good afternoon, my dear friend. Kara, she says. Good afternoon, my dear friend, Lagia. And Mark Kageyama, he says, hello, kind peoples. Dorleanne, I was on her show yesterday. She says, hello, friends, or hey, friends. Also, Tim Stone says, I once wore a robe on a show with Brian Schulman, Kara Olker, breaking news. Nice to know. Also on Twitch, hey, Kara, Firebird Streams. Hi, Firebird Streams. Yeah. Awesome. Love the comments. So, last week I had Tim Stone, we're talking about growing pains, and people getting on the stream a little later. The reason why I'm wearing a robe is that I was talking to Tim Stone about how comfy it is and how pretty it is too. It's so soft and it looks soft and it's so pretty. And I'm like, I'm just gonna wear it. And I guess it's kind of fitting because we're talking about self-care versus self-preservation today. And it's something that if you are learning for yourself or need a reminder of, this is super important, especially since so many people I know, including myself, are going through some major growing pains right now. And so I do want to talk about self-care versus self-preservation and how they are completely different concepts. And both useful, very useful and necessary. So Self-care is an act of self-love and maintenance that stems from self-love. The focus is on maintaining and nurturing your well-being. So examples include bubble baths, just because you love bubble baths, pedicures because they just make you feel good, candles and extravagant dinners, just, because why not, right? Uh, Self-care also includes checking the balance of your checking and savings account, establishing a savings account, and prioritizing your financial future and present self. Routine therapy, coaching appointments, to-do lists, self-expression such as dancing or movement, workouts, mending or replacing tattered clothes, routine laundry and cleaning, time with friends and family, time with self, drinking water, having that one cup of coffee you enjoy, or maybe two, just because. And self-preservation is the reaction to self-abandonment and overwhelm, and the taking on of negative emotion around circumstance. So you focus on catching up from the lack of inability to maintain and nurture your well-being. Examples include massages after a long week, hiding from the world to recharge, sleeping in extra long, catching up on finances and paying bills after not doing so, emergency sessions and venting to friends and family, workouts as therapy or punishment, healthy food as punishment or junk food as a reward for enduring your negative emotions around your circumstance, shopping sprees as a release, cleaning as a release or to cope, binging on alcohol and caffeine, or overloading on water because it's what they say you should do, whoever they is. So the key points to take from this is that actually, before I do that, I want to go into the comments. What do you think about that, guys? I dropped a bomb on you. What do you think about that? Self-care is actually just taking care of yourself, not catching up with yourself. How do you feel about that? How does that resonate? How many of you have been self-preserving lately? I want to know. Type your comments in the chats. Also, Nivek says that he would have thought my robe was a sweater if I hadn't said anything. Well, that's fine. It's a beautiful robe and I love it. And thank you. Now I know I can just wear it as a sweater during my live chats. So if I want to be covert, getting enough sleep, Nivek says, not working too hard. Yeah, not pushing yourself to emotional distress. That's really good self-care. Elizabeth, hey, thanks for joining us. She says, hi, Kara. Also, Tam says, you clean a lot, Kara Olker. What does that mean? So yeah, I clean as a way of maintaining, right? If you just take care of your space versus, oh my gosh, I have this like stack of dishes that's been in my sink for a month and I'm just not getting to them because I've been so stressed out. That's self-preservation and reacting versus maintaining. And also I will get to this more. Like I said before, both are so necessary. There are times when you need to preserve yourself. There are times where, especially during this time, seasonal depression is so real. And there will be times where you literally can't take care of yourself because it's just too much. So making up for that is every bit real, but just saying, oh yeah, self-care, glorifying it versus seeing it for what it is, that's super important. Also, Nivek says, whistles innocently about the mass dish washing he did last night. Hey, you know what? No shame in that, Nivex. And Ligia says, being compassionate and embracing ourselves, being grateful for our gifts. Yes, definitely. What I love about Ligia is that she embraces just um, the human experience, and she embraces the beautiful part of the human experience, just love, self-love, being compassionate to others, movements, um, you know, being kind, giving, and also giving to yourself. So I appreciate your perspective, Ligia, for sure. Um, but like I said, both are essential though. So just watch which you engage in the most regularly, and feel your feelings around that, and use that as an indicator on how to care for yourself. Um, so, like, I know it's kind of funny, but even this robe, for the longest time, I had a ratty robe that was stained with bleach. Like, it was just bleach, right? And like, why am I wearing this? And I felt just, I didn't feel good wearing it. So now I'm like, look at my robe. I'm going to show it off like a sweater, right? But anyways, self-preservation in society is actually more celebrated and normalized, while passing it off as self-care, especially with women. How many times do you see in sitcoms where it's like, you know, the mom is so overworked that she spends the entire day in the bathtub eating chocolate covered strawberries and drinking champagne or wine all day because she needs a break from the kids. Like, that's self-preservation. That is not self-care. That is, leave me in the hell alone. I need to prioritize and set boundaries, right? Sometimes you can't always, like, there will be times where your boundaries are crossed due to circumstances, but you always having to react or catch up to the lack of boundaries. That's definitely something to look for and reframe in yourself. And this goes back to the notion, societal notion, and also reinforced in families, that you have to be strong and that you deserve it because you've acted like you're deserving, versus we're all humans who automatically, because you're human and we all have life experiences, like, you deserve to love and care for yourself, not just others, right? And self-preservation also points to the notion of primal instincts, the sympathetic nervous system versus the thriving mentality, parasympathetic nervous system. The more we're aware of which we engage in and which mentality allows for a more fruitful life, the more we can develop habits around what serves us. This gives us the green light for self-accountability and a life of learning versus a life of perfectionism and shame. So I want to know your thoughts around that, guys. I want to know. You all are amazing about, giving me your thoughts. So right now it's just a lot of, hey, how's it going? But Nivek says, quotes, we don't cry because we're weak. We cry because we've been strong too long. Yes. And crying is a sense of self-preservation, which is completely necessary. But there are times where you work it in your day to day, right? Just have a cry every day. I mean, there you go. You're just kind of self-regulated. But he read this quote, the quote, we do not cry because we're weak. We cry because we've been strong too long. He doesn't know where he read it years ago. But yeah, where in your life have you felt pressure to just be strong and feel shame around self-preservation or even self-care. Like even taking care of yourself. Hey, I have a big hole in my pants from moving something, why don't I mend it? Or why don't I get a new pair of pants? Or even if you wear clothes that don't fit you, that's self-care is wearing clothes that fit you or enhance your personality, right? But yeah, I again, I just want to say make time for both. Self-care equals daily habits. So if you build whatever daily habits you have, that's your self-care. And sometimes the bad habits or the habits that enhance your negative emotions and do not serve you, that's self-sabotage. So let's think about it that way. So your daily habits that do not serve you, that's sabotage. The ones that help you through your day, such as making that to-do list, completing your to-do list, making time for you to read, drink water because you're thirsty, whatever, that's self-care. And also I want to note, especially for women, self-preservation, they're planned events that you can plan these events to balance out your survival state, such as, let's say, you have a busy week ahead. You're going to kind of make sure that you at least schedule some, sleep for yourself or a nap or whatever. And then afterwards, you just have time to yourself, especially if full disclosure, especially when you have hormonal or physical things going on, So for women or our menstrual cycles, I automatically plan, okay, so this week I'm going to sleep extra longer and I'm going to make sure to have my favorite snacks extra because I don't want my favorite snacks any other time except for this time of the month, right? So release the shame around that and totally be okay with that. Be a little bit of a planner if that benefits you. And again, remove the shame around the fact that sometimes you do have to preserve yourself, aka set better boundaries or set boundaries at all, and establish self-care habits versus self-sabotaging habits. I love it. So I definitely appreciate you guys jumping in today. I've been trying to kind of figure out my flow with this podcast, figuring out what I want to do with it, trying out different things, different formats. Sorry, I have a puppy going nuts today. But I do want to drop some poignant reads. I want to suggest The Elephant and the Brain by Kevin Simler and Robin Hanson. This book is pretty interesting. It talks about our motivations behind our survival state, which talks about self-preservation, but I really loved how they framed it as motivations. And it goes behind the whole notion of self-care versus self-sabotage. And also, if you're not into reading books, like long books like me, and you love short stories and motivational quotes and all this, I suggest The Path Made Clear by Oprah Winfrey. I mean, who doesn't love Oprah? And who doesn't love short stories and excerpts, right? And also, I read this book several years ago, but I love it. It's called Spark Joy by Marie Kondo. And it just talks about, of course, just the Marie Kondo method of organizing, but also how it sets up your life as self-care. And she talks about self-care as, remove everything in your life that doesn't serve you. And then everything in your life, even if you have a toothbrush and your favorite pair of rain boots, that's like all you have, minus, clothes that really make you happy and your coffee maker. Like, be happy with that. Always keep things in your life that spark joy. And I remember reading this book and people saying afterwards how they divorced their husbands because their marriage did not spark joy for a very long time. And they just needed permission to be like, I need to find out what that joy is. I don't recommend that. I'm just saying this book sparks a lot of reactions from different people. And also one book that really has transformed how I frame a lot of how I feel and my healing journey as well is How to Do the Work by Dr. Nicole Lapera. She is a psychologist and she works around a lot of trauma and healing your inner child and how, all of us trauma, just different trauma, and remove the shame around, oh, well, my trauma isn't as big or hard as yours. Like, it's just taking, what your life is and reframing it and navigating it in a way that is not from a wounded state. So those are my reads. And I just appreciate you guys. My goodness, I love you all. Nevex, Mark, Tam, Lagia, Elizabeth, you're on every week, and I just appreciate you. Also, during my live stream, it's gotten dark in here. It's very rainy and cloudy in Cincinnati. But I just appreciate your time, and I appreciate all of you. And I'm just going to keep doing this. Speaking of planning, I'm, wanting to plan something and have more guests on the show. I've just been, in my head about that. I'm not going to lie. But that said, do you want to be a guest? Would you like to be a guest on my show? You want to talk about your personal power or your perspective? Especially if you're a coach. Do you want to talk about that? Or if you are a psychologist, psychiatrist, anyone who really owns their element of personal power, or you really just want to talk and kind of have like an online impromptu coaching session around your personal power, DM me. Let's talk about it. Let's do it. And also, do you have a show or upcoming projects? Send me your promo cards and details so I can share on Deepen Roots podcast. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Deepen Roots and Twitch, by the way. And you can subscribe on Apple and Google Podcasts. And so here's the thing. There's a show tonight called Showing Up Perspectives on Cancer. Tonight we're going to have Josh Tahan on, whose son is a leukemia survivor. And it's going to be a really great show. So please join us on Tim and I's YouTube channels and also on our LinkedIn. And I do want to show before the lighting turns me completely like in the dark. And there's no lighting. Is open your hearts and wallets. It is going to be a 24-hour fundraising live streamed event in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from today at 6 p.m. And it's going to be an amazing event put on by so many of us. Gonna get that card, by the way, that graphic card. But there it is, guys. Isn't it pretty? So hold on, I'm removing that graphic. Okay. So but yeah, it is March 8th through March 9th. And what we're going to do is we're going to be streaming from multiple channels, and we're going to put the links, the updated links every hour on Tim Sohn's donation page for LLS. So this is all for Man and Woman of the Year for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. So many amazing things are going to be going on for the next 10 weeks, starting the week of March 7th. But we're kicking this off on March 8th and 9th with our live streaming fundraising event. So what's pretty awesome is that we have special guests and performances. Special guest Laura Raba, who is the mother of the Girl of the Year. Jim Calhoun, he's a professional athlete. We have Steve Stockmall, and also we have two performers I'm super excited about, Ashok and Rachel. Amazing part of the LinkedIn fam and community. And so yeah, please, I will be getting putting out more details regarding that, where you can find us, where you can watch us. When the time comes. And this is so funny. I'm like, how do I? So now I can't get. Oh, there it is. I'm like, which card is showing, is not allowing my face to be shown. Anyway, so that is that, guys. And again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. I love you all. And I will see you next time.